Hello and welcome to Music Maps, the Rock and Roll Book Club podcast. In each episode we use a place as a jumping off point for a conversation about music, anywhere from the obvious to the obscure.
Hello, Mark.
It's another Music Maps podcast.
It's yet another Music Maps.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Our first guest who's flown in all the way from New York.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Because today, Simon, we have got the fabulous Suzi Ronson.
We do.
Stylist for Bowie. She created the Ziggy Stardust haircut and...
I think you should get your hair like that, Mark.
You've
You've got the colour right.
In the olden days, perhaps. And yeah, we're going to hear her stories about Mick Ronson, about working with David, all of that stuff. It's going to be fantastic.
It is, yes.
And because it's a
First
music
time we
map,
talked about David Bowie as well.
Is it?
Is it Bowie or Bowie?
I always say Bowie. In the States, they say Bowie.
Yeah. I've always said Bowie
Have you? Maybe. Where are you from?
from the northeast.
That might be because...
It's just what my parents...
I'm just going to
Yeah.
call him David. I'm going to assume
That's a good
familiarity.
idea.
Let's
That's
just
a
call him
good
David.
idea.
No, that feels a bit presumptuous, actually, but we'll see.
It was always Bowie when I was around.
Yeah, I think it's established the correct pronunciation's Bowie.
I think across the course of the hour, we'll probably see variations
I'm just
on
so
this.
used to saying Bowie.
You can say Bowie, no one's going to be upset.
But the other important thing is we're putting another pin in our map, and it's
We are.
not New York, Simon. It is Bromley and Beckenham. Is that right?
Well, we're starting in Bromley and Beckenham, yes.
And Bromley and Beckenham, which of course everyone listening already knows, is famous for former residents including H.G. Wells, Alistair Crowley,
Enid Blyton.
the yin and yang of literature,
Yes.
Alistair and Enid, Bill Wyman,
Yeah.
other rock stars, Peter Frampton,
Stephen Severin, Norman Cook, Bob Monkhouse.
and David Sylvian of
Yeah.
Japan.
Going to use today is actually the Hammersmith Odeon.
What? Why have we done all that stuff about Bromley and Beckenham and
It's
now
where-
we've just put a swerve in?
That's where we're starting. I think we'll do the Hammersmith Odeon today. So it was originally the Gaumont Palace,
Really?
became the Odeon in 1962, and today it's the Hammersmith Apollo.
I mean, the Hammersmith Apollo is an iconic venue, isn't it? The history of who's played there does read like an A to Z of music. In 1958, Buddy Holly's final UK show took place there. Do you know he also played in Walthamstow, where we're from?
He did, and so did the Beatles, who in late 1964 played 38 shows at the Hammersmith Odeon in 21 days.
They didn't mess about in those days, did they? They we'll talk about this later, but they remind me of some of the pop stars in Michael Cragg's Reach
Yes.
for the Stars book, which may be the subject of a subsequent
Yes,
podcast.
that
We'll
may
see.
be an upcoming one too. Bruce Springsteen made his UK debut at this same place.
You love that because you're a big, big
I
Bruce
am.
Springsteen fan, aren't you?
The Hammersmith crowd can be heard on the intro to Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions. Kate Bush made her comeback there in 2016, but it's most famous, I think, for the final Ziggy Stardust show in 1973.
And that sounds like a good place to start.
Yeah. We're going to move back to Beckenham to start with. So this all starts when David Bowie's mum walks into a hair salon.
That's right. She walked in my 2:45. She really wasn't my client, in actual fact. But the girl who was going to do her, Carol, I think her name was, said, "Oh, her boyfriend she wants to get out early, please, please, please." And I said, "Okay, I would cover for her." So I did her hair, and she liked it. She really liked. "I'm coming to you next week," she said. I said, "Okay." So that started it. And as I would do her hair, she would chat to me about her son, David. Well, of course, clients always talk to you about their sons, their daughters, all their health, their knees, whatever it is, and you smile and nod. I don't think too much of it. It wasn't until she mentioned Space Oddity that my ears pricked up. I said, "Space Oddity? I've heard that on the radio."
What context is that? Oh, sorry, how does that come up then?
Well, she's talking about, she seemed so proud of him. He was a musician, he played in a band, he was a singer, he was this, he was that. And she seemed so proud of him. But as I say, I would just kind of smile and nod. It wasn't until she said, "Well, he had a hit record, Space Oddity." I said, "Space Oddity." And then I realised, are we talking about David Bowie? She said, "Yes, I'm his mum."
Wow.
And the first time you saw David, we understand, is in 1971, and he's pushing a pushchair down Beckenham High Street wearing a dress.
That's the first time I saw him, and he was with Angie.
Yeah.
So how well known was he at this point?
Well, he had a big artsy-fartsy thing going on down at the Three Tons.
Yeah.
And he would sing folk songs. Sit
Right.
there and strum along on a stool and sing folk songs.
So he's playing a lot of gigs in Beckenham.
Yeah, but when I was researching for my book, I looked at what David's life was like. That man, since he was 15 years old, got on a stage 5 nights out of 6 every week of his life.
Yeah.
He was madly ambitious. I mean, he put a lot of work into it. which I hadn't realised before.
So then the following week, his wife Angie comes in with Mrs. Jones.
Yep, she came in and she was, I mean, I liked her right away. A, she was American. There was no Americans in Beckenham. I don't think I'd ever met an American before. So she was American. She was tall, slim, very, very slim, which was all the vogue in the early 70s, to be skinny. White skin, short hair. And she wore these black pants and this fizzy, furry jacket. I mean, you didn't buy clothes like that in Beckenham. It was incredible the way she looked. And I was entranced by her. I couldn't. And so she got me to do her hair. And she said, I said, well, what would you like me to do? And she said, do something creative. And I took her at her word. And I bleached out one side of her hair. There was this water rinse I used to use on the old girls at the salon. You drop it with water. And if their hair was like a little yellow from smoking or whatever, you'd put it on so it gave it a little purplish tint or a bluish tint. But neat, the colours were fierce. So once I bleached it out, I put this bright stripe of pink and a bright stripe of blue and some frosty silver. Well, she loved it. She loved it. She walked out promising to come back soon.
And Angie, at this time, is living in this, what I've always imagined, the sprawling mansion Haddon Hall.
It was gorgeous, that place.
Tell us about Haddon Hall. What was it like going there for the first time? What did it feel like?
Well, it was so big. I mean, I'd never been in a house that big before. It was a sprawling mansion, as you say. Yeah, they had a ground floor flat. But the thing is, when you walked in, there was this enormous, I mean, I can't even tell you how big, this room, that room, an enormous entrance hall. The kitchen was a postage stamp, and the bathroom was a postage stamp the opposite side. So that was very small. But the living room, it wasn't so much the size of it, even though it was impressive with the sweeping staircases. But they went up to this minstrel's gallery where there were other doors that had been sealed off. And they were other apartments in the house, which, of course, I didn't know at that time. But when I walked into the living room, it's the way it was decorated. They'd got a midnight blue carpet, midnight blue walls, and a silver ceiling. Not much furniture.
Not many silver ceilings in Beckenham.
None. And it was that, that tin stuff, that ornate kind of tin stuff. It wasn't just a flat silver ceiling. It was ornately carved. I don't know what it was. It looked like that. I've seen those old tin things later.
It's just the kind of place I'd imagine David Bowie to be living.
And they had a big bay window, some musical instruments.
Stained glass windows.
There was in the entrance hall, when you walked up the stairs at the back, he's had photographs taken in front of it, the big stained glass window. But not much stuff, big coffee table, lots of magazines and stuff on it. But I mean, my front room was full of dog hair and, furniture. I wasn't used to such space.
But on this first visit and this is where you cut David's hair into the Ziggy Stardust.
Well, it actually quite wasn't like that.
Okay.
I mean, I was cautiously optimistic. He showed me a photograph in a magazine of this girl with his short red spiky hair, and he said to me, "Can you do that?"
What was his hair like?
It was like kind of long and blondish. It wasn't that long, but it was long and blondish.
David's had so many
hairstyles.
So many styles. And I remember, one of those early photographs in his early bands where he's, I
think the cover of Men Who Sold the World would be that.
Very long, wasn't it? It wasn't long as that, but it was long and kind of blondish.
So it was quite a transformation.
Well, it wasn't, because when I cut it, this hairstyle had long points at the neck. Now, the nape went like around like that, long bits coming down here, and this short stuff at the front. It wouldn't stand up, would it? It just kind of flopped. He looked like a schoolboy. I mean, I felt really bad. I didn't know what to say to him. So he says to me, he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, David, I didn't apologise. I just said to him, David, the second we get some colour in your hair, it will stand up. And I was praying I was right. I was prepared. I would have bleached it out white because that damages your hair and that also helps with the standing up.
Okay.
But I found the colour, red hot red, I found the colour, and then I found this stuff. We didn't have any fixatives in those days, so there was none. It was a stippity-doo, but that was it. But I found this anti-dandruff treatment called Guard. Side effects, set hair like stone. So I used that.
Guard, I'm unfamiliar with Guard now. I mean, for me, it's Head and Shoulders or nothing. So,
but this was, it was, but it had a setting lotion in it, so I think you were meant to use like a little bit.
You use loads.
Like the whole bottle on. And as I'm drying it, I'm feeling, and I can feel it, and it stood up.
Amazing.
He was happy with.
Oh my God! He was just dancing around the living room, shaking his head. Numma, numma, let's go up to the speak, and not the speak. He was going to the sombrero. And a huge wave of relief washed over. I mean, I'd done it. I was really surprised, but I'd done it.
Now you also meet Mick Ronson.
Not right away, but I did get to meet Mick and the rest of the band. I cut their hair.
Remind us who the other spiders
Okay, we
were.
have
The
Trevor
spiders
Boulder
ones.
on bass, and
Did
Woody
he have
Woodman
big sideys?
He did have the big sideys, but his hair was like all one length and long, brown. And Mick was the only stylish one, really. He had blonde hair, and it was long and swept back from his face, but he didn't have spikes. He wouldn't let me touch his hair, Mick. And Woody's hair was difficult. It was kind of that very crispy, dry, frizzy hair. So that was a bit of a challenge. But I didn't cut their hair, and I saw them play first. When I first saw them play, that's when I knew, oh my God, what is this? I went up there expecting to see folk music, and I went home thinking, something going on here. You could just sense it.
So it's on one of these visits to Haddon Hall. One of my favourite stories in the book is you overhear David and Mick rehearsing Starman in the living room.
Well, they actually were playing a mix,
Right.
that they brought back from Trident.
Okay. Oh, they were playing it.
Right. We were playing it, and everyone was like, and then when they finished, we all went, yeah, because it was so good. I was so suburban, really, but the energy around these people and the music.
One of the greatest inspirational tracks. It inspired so many musicians.
Yeah.
And time again, you read about that performance on Top of the Pops, or as some people from the North will say, actually, a couple of weeks earlier on Aisha. That's where we saw that. But we'll leave that to later. But you were then tasked with changing the look of the Spiders.
Well, I wanted a job with them. I mean, and I was the one that suggested, I said, look, David, the band look great, but they need some help with their hair. And he looked at me, he said, well, go see what you can do then. So that's when I went down and I spiked Trevor's hair up. Trevor's hair came out fantastic, I thought. He had that spiky top and the very long hair, because he didn't want his hair. He was funny because he was a bit nervous, because when I saw the boys after I cut David's hair, I said, well, what do you think of David's hair then? Silence. Then Mick said, well, it's not for everyone. I thought that was so funny. You could tell they were nervous. I was going to do that to them too. But I didn't. I said to Trevor, we'll just spike the top, we'll layer it into the back, and then we'll dye it.
I can't help feel these are people from Hull.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are, exactly.
Just like that in
See, the costumes and the makeup, that was also hysterical. So he said, all right, then. He said, I said, I'm going to dye it black. He said, blue-black. I said, okay, blue-black. So I was really surprised that he thought about it enough to think, blue-black.
Were you doing the costumes as well?
Not at the beginning. At the beginning, I was doing anything I could.
Yeah.
I would just go to gigs.
Make yourself useful.
Yes, make myself useful, want them having me around, working my way in, because there was no girls on the road in those days. No. I mean, my friends told me I was crazy to even think I was going to get on the roads. Girls didn't go on the road. There was, wives went to visit, girlfriends went to visit, groupie was there all the time. But there weren't girls working on the road at that time. I think I was one of the first.
So you find yourself almost living a double life. How did your parents back in Bromley react to this and the direction your life is taking?
My poor parents, when that, was it Melody Maker, the front cover, when Mick David's going, playing Mick's guitar with his mouth, and that was, my mother brought that home. And she kind of threw it on the kitchen table, and she was really upset. Her eyes were wet. Is this who you're working for? Oh, well, Mum, she said, well, is it? I said, Mum, he's married. He's got a kid. This is just for the press.
He pushes pram in the
that's what I said to her. This is just for the press. This is not normal. This is not real. And I actually kind of half believed that myself, because he was married. I hadn't heard it. So suburban. I hadn't heard about bisexuality. I thought, I'd heard about gay blokes a bit, but not much. Yeah. Remember, in 1968, it was against the law to be gay. And there was, no internet, nothing.
Well, of course, yeah.
So you didn't know anything, really. But so my dad goes, is he a queer then? And I said, Dad, no, he's not. My brothers go, like this, It was, so I was terrified they were going to say to me, that's it.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
In these early days, are you getting to the local gigs? The ones that are further afield are too far?
I couldn't go. Right. Well, I could only go if
so you're still working at the hair salon.
I had a car, but I could only drive if I could drive there and get back the same night, because I was still working down the old girls' hairdressing salon.
Yeah. So within an hour or two.
Yes, I would go.
But nothing further afield than that. So
no.
Starman comes out April 72. and the now iconic Top of the Pops performance follows. Where were you?
Aisha.
Well, I
yes.
was actually really annoyed that I missed that Top of the Pops performance.
So you weren't actually at
I wasn't invited. I didn't even know they were going to be on. I'm sitting at home eating sausage and chips on the couch, right?
with your mum and dad.
With Mum and Dad. And on he comes, and Mum says, "Is that?" I said, "Yeah." And I was really a little bit cross because I didn't know. No one had told me. I mean, how dare they? But 2-3 days later, they played Save the Whale.
This is the Royal Festival.
Yes. And I was there doing costumes and hair and helping with makeup. And Lou Reed was there. Lou Reed was guesting.
Yes.
Now, I thought Lou was a big star in the States. The way David and Angie would talk about Lou, I thought he was a big star in the States. He was standing backstage terrified.
Yes.
I mean, he was really scared. And he looked great. He had on this black velvet black velvet suit with Diamantes on the collar and cuffs, I think. And I looked at him and he didn't say anything to me. I didn't know what to say to him. I kind of helped him with his hair and all the rest of it. And I said to him, "Are you nervous?" He didn't say anything. "How many people out there?" I said, "About 2,000. I think we've sold out." And I could tell that really he wasn't happy. But I took him to the side of the stage, walked him on. Well, when he went on, the audience went ballistic. And it was such a gorgeous show, that one. They were playing so well. Lou all rock and roll darkness, the band all glam and glitter. It was a great show.
It was only in the February that same year that that obviously David had debuted this Ziggy character.
That's right.
I think it was at the Toby Jug in Tolworth.
It might have been. The first time I saw them was at a college in London.
Yes, there's some quite obscure venue in the early part of that tour.
Oh,
there's
God,
some really
yeah.
obscure venues.
And that's when he got a security guard, I think. They went to one of them in all their finery. Mick tells it so well. In all our finery. We're on stage and they start throwing stuff at them, beer bottles and stuff. And they had to run off and do a runner out the gig in the car park, in the car and off. I mean, it was a really terrifying gig.
So in the suburbs, people weren't ready. Weren't ready.
And that's when they got Stewie George. Mick got Stewie down from Hull.
How big's Stewie?
He's wide.
Wide.
And he's fearless. That's the thing about people. You can be big and strong, but if you're not fearless.
So in the February from the Toby Jug to in the June at the Royal Festival Hall sold out, how quick has this caught fire?
Well, you can tell from the Toby Jug there. Yeah. I mean, it's about that
to
length
me
of time.
It's quite incredible, yeah.
And that's when I just knew it, though. You just knew it. You could feel it. The energy was fantastic.
If 12 million people or whatever it was were watching Top of the Pops, remember,
yeah.
we were all watching. It was only 3 channels.
Well, that was it. I mean, that's the other thing. It was Anya, our press agent, that got that. Someone dropped out at the last minute.
Oh.
It wasn't even booked, and she was asked to fill it in, and he filled it in. I mean, look how he did these. What a great performance they did.
Oh, wow.
Awesome performance.
Yeah. Well, I say, magical. It inspired so many people.
Yeah.
But he has, as you said, 6-7 gigs a week, going back to 1965.
Yeah.
He's ready.
He was more than ready, yeah.
So that's some of it's quick for you as well. You get a call, Dave and Angie want you to come and work for them full time.
Yes.
And you leave the hair salon.
Yeah.
And you get a pay rise, I think.
Well, I went to see the manager. Angie said, "Well, go see the manager, sort out your wages." Because she'd offered me a job.
Is this Tony DeFries?
Tony DeFries.
Yeah.
She'd offered me jobs before.
Yeah.
But it was so airy-fairy with this lot. They didn't sort of say
It's
wages, what it
rock and
was.
roll
No, it
business.
was just like, come and work with us, give up your job. And I'm like, my mum liked her $5 a week on the table, I wasn't about to give up the job and just go hang out round there. So then she knew. I said, I have to get paid. So I went to see the manager, and I think I was making £11 a week, and he offered me 20.
It's all right, isn't it?
There we go. So staying on Tony DeFries, the mystique of Ziggy, how there was, there's very few interviews, there's not many photos that get put out and things. How much of that was from David and how much of that was from Tony?
Oh, that was all from Tony. No photographs. You couldn't have... When we did the Rainbow, he had this sign in the lobby. You can't take any recording equipment and you can't take any cameras in. And if we see you taking photographs, you will be ejected. And he seemed delighted at the prospect of it.
Chucking people out.
He was dying to chuck people out. So he created an amazing air of mystique around David. He made David hard to get to. He didn't accept everything, it's just some things he accepted. And when we toured, we had a very tough rider. What had to happen and all the facilities and the piano had to be this and that and the other thing. And we could pull out any of these gigs if it didn't
was
work.
wrong.
Of course, we never pulled out of any of these gigs.
It was used to create leverage.
Yeah, but it was... The roadies or the people that were in the theatres, they were a bit shocked at first and they were kind of laughing at us. But by the end of the show, They looked at us in a new light because that attention to detail made for a fantastic show. We were seamless, one song to the other, the costume changes to this, to that, the sound, the lights. It was all very carefully prepared. And they weren't used to bands like that. Most bands got up from the bar and played a set, you know?
So it's more of a show.
It was a show.
Than a lot of previous tours. The tour travels the whole country, and there's these 2 gigs at Finsbury Park that we just mentioned. So this is your first as a full-time employee.
Yeah.
August of 1972.
That's right.
Now, what's amazing for me,
Yeah.
Roxy
And me.
Music and the
poor
opening act.
I felt so bad for them.
Why did you feel bad for them?
Well, because they weren't allowed to have a sound check, number one.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed
Standard.
to open the curtains. I had to get the stage was like only half the size of this room. You know, they weren't allowed to. They were never allowed to, and the size of and the audience, they didn't give two about Roxy Music. So they cheered when they came on, but they cheered even louder when they went off.
I mean, again, with the benefit of hindsight and what we know about Roxy, that comes as a surprise, doesn't it? Because
Well, yes, because they were
such
a
an
band.
amazing
And
band.
I think Brian
But to be treated
and
like
David were friends.
like every other
you
support
see-
band has ever been treated
But
in
this
the history of music.
This was the magic about DeFries. Because David didn't do it to them. DeFries did. David said, I'm really sorry. You know, David would say, I'm really sorry. Got to talk to my manager. And it was perfect.
Yeah, so somehow he found time to produce Transformer for Lou Reed.
Can you imagine?
In amongst all this.
I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine it. And that album is so fantastic, right?
Just twisting a few knobs and a few sliders. Don't add too much mystique into the role of the producer.
So obviously now you get to visit all these new places, but presumably it's just complete chaos by this point every night.
The chaos was trying to get them out the door in one piece. That was the chaos.
The Elvis Presley exit.
The Elvis Presley exit.
So what does that involve?
Well, they've been to see Elvis Presley in Madison Square Garden. DeFries, David, Angie. David went in his costume, which he bitterly regretted, but he went in his costume. He wanted to be seen as the heir apparent. David really thought highly of himself, right? He thought he was going to be the new Elvis, and it was like... But anyway, at the end of the show, couldn't believe it. I mean, he said it was really crazy, really insane, that audience. And at the end of the show, the lights went down and a voice comes on, Elvis Presley has left the building. Freese loved it. Yeah. He just loved it. So he couldn't wait to use that exit.
Showmanship.
Well, he really did idolise Colonel Tom Parker. He really did.
Okay.
So the exit was David would come off stage and the band, I would lead them to the backstage and we'd all jump in the car and off we went. And you could hear them saying, David has left the building. The first time we did it, we blew past 2 dogs and 3 fans. We drove off. And then the next time, then I would go back to, with all the costumes and whatnot. And I got back to the hotel and I think it's Woody and Travis sitting in the corner. And Woody says, I'd rather be mobbed. Because there was nobody there. They might not want to be mobbed, but they wanted to have some fun, see some fans,
So your job on the tour involves all sorts of things.
Everything, yeah.
How do you manage the logistical side where you're having to look after all these presumably very delicate costumes and cleaning them and fixing and repairing things and stuff?
How many flight cases of costumes are there?
Presumably there's not a lot of
actually. I mean, it got more as we got to Japan and we got all those extra things. But David had a big wardrobe case and the band had a big wardrobe case because remember they were quite thin. So, like the band would have a gold set. Yeah. With shoes with a gold heel or a gold thing or whatever it was. And then there was a silver set. And I'd alternate them. It was fine until we started doing 2 shows a day. Then they got a bit hairy. Zips and things started disintegrating. But David had more costumes, but even his costumes, the Japanese ones, they were silk.
Right.
Just, so silk booties.
Yeah.
No, there's no sole on them. It's just satin. Yeah. And they're running around on a, wooden stage.
Lights with,
and presumably there's not a lot of infrastructure.
It was bare boards at some point, right? And these boots were not going to last, I had to sew satin soles on them. I just, made it up as I went along, really.
Yeah. So David now is about to take on America. He takes the QE2 because he doesn't like flying. Mike Garson is added to the lineup on piano.
Well, isn't he fabulous? Yeah. That piano. And Mick was so relieved because Mick used to be running from one instrument to the other, know. He was so relieved when they got Mike.
So the tour gets to the US in September. Did the Americans receive Ziggy with the same fervour and rapture? How did they go down?
They did on the coast. They did in Cleveland for sure. Philadelphia definitely. New York certainly.
But Then you go
The middle
Midwest.
of America, it was a little tougher.
Yeah.
Kansas, we were on our knees. But then you get to Chicago and LA, and it built back up again. So I would say the coast or the major cities loved him, but we didn't dare go down south. He said, I think we'll cancel Texas. I said, that's probably a good idea.
So, yeah, you mentioned Cleveland, and then...
I'm Philly, the Tower Theatre in Philly. Oh, my God.
Carnegie Hall, Winterland, Santa Monica. And by this point, your haircut, the Ziggy haircut, is everywhere, yeah?
It's everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look quite so good in a 200-pound trucker. A lot of kids, it look really good.
So
But
one thing
that must be amazing. I mean, yeah.
Well, I didn't, let me tell you something. I thought we were still talking about this haircut some 50-odd years later. I would never have believed it. But I did think at the time, that's an iconic haircut. And I mean, it started out, David said, it was Kansai Yamamoto when he was cross with me. But it might have started out that little fluff at the front, but it developed into my own hairstyle, longer. I put some gold highlights in it. I mean, it looked really good. But I think that because but we had to touch it up all the time. It was a constantly demanding hairstyle, if you like. And so the kids would come and some kids looked good and some didn't.
Yeah. There's all that
Same with
footage
anything.
you see outside. It might be Hammersmith. You
Yeah, it
see
is,
footage.
it is.
Those girls crying their eyes out. I don't want to see David. Less
Do they
successful
do that?
versions.
Do they do that? I mean, do they do that with Harry Styles? Or do they do that?
Oh, we do, yeah.
You
absolutely.
think so, right? I mean,
Well,
it's-
Harry Styles is an exception. If anyone's listening from Harry Styles, we'd love to have him on the podcast.
We would. So on this tour, after being encouraged to be as outrageous as possible by Tony DeFries,
that's true.
the touring party managed to spend $250,000.
In that one American tour.
What's that these days? Is that like 5 million? I mean, a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Because we didn't do it about 18 days. I mean, we kind of
So
swarmed
what
around.
was this spent on?
Well,
You
you
have to
tried
ask
Beverly Hills
Simon.
Hotel. The thing is, a lot of bands put the crew in one hotel and the band stay in another. They didn't do that. We all stayed at the same hotel. We all stayed at the Plaza Hotel. We took over a floor. And we had a bodyguard on the elevator and a bodyguard outside David's room. And there was no cash. Because he didn't have any actual money. So we had to charge everything to the room. All the meals. See, one of our guys used to have a chocolate souffle for breakfast.
Yes.
Every morning. And it took 45 minutes to make and probably cost about $45. But he had one every day.
But you didn't have PD, so Tony
No.
wasn't there handing out $40.
No, not on that tour. We had no money at all.
It's a term, PDMs.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
Good day.
of cash you get every day, or should get. And sometimes it's very little. There are many, many books where you will read that the PDMs in the US are like $5 and you can't spend it on anything.
But the hotels that we were in on that first tour, the Beverly Hills Hotel in California, we stayed there. David was driving. We had to wait for him by the pool.
Yeah.
It was tough.
It sounds hard.
David and I went early because the band were coming along, but we weren't playing. We were playing the Tower Theatre like about a week later or something. But David was going to give them a little boost, and he went there to introduce them, and he sung All the Young Dudes with them.
But it's non-stop, and the Spiders are back in America and then on to Japan, 1973.
Gorgeous Japan.
And it's in Tokyo, though, you first hear about David's plans to break up the band.
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure if it was David's or DeFries's, but I hear them talking. There was Mick, David, and DeFries. I don't think they really, I was one of those people. I was around the room, coffee, this and that. I don't make myself noticeable. I'm just kind of around doing things, helping people. And they were talking about breaking up the band, and I was so upset. I was like, my God, what am I going to do if the selfish cow, right? What am I going to do if they break up the band? I'll have to go back to Beckenham. No, I didn't want to do that. So I think afterwards, Tony had realised he'd been very open in front of me. And he said to me, if you want to keep working with us, then don't say one word about this conversation. And that was really difficult because I like Woody and Trevor. They were my friends. Yeah. I liked the road crews. They were all my friends, but I was selfish. I didn't want to go back to Beckenham.
Did you sense, though, it was the end, or did you think it could be a conversation?
I thought he might change his mind. I hung on to that dream until that last night that he might change his mind. If he hadn't said it, we'd have been off to the races back to America. And that's what I was praying was going to happen.
Yeah, because there was a tour already planned.
Yeah, it was starting in the September. It was about 6 or 8 weeks away. July was a couple of months away. And I really wanted to go on that tour. We were going to do the album in France, come back, go on tour. Yeah.
So in April of 73, the Aladdin Sane album comes out. And based on pre-orders, David's now the biggest act since the Beatles.
That's right.
But there is a rather disastrous gig at Earl's Court that starts this next tour.
It was like, I think we were the first people to use Earl's Court as a venue.
This is an early attempt at playing an arena
Yeah,
gig.
and you walked in and it was like such a big space and concrete. And their sound engineers going, look at this. And when our equipment came in, it looked like toys. And the stage was like, it was rubbish, the stage. It was just planks on struts. It wasn't even secure. And it was tiny. And this place was sold out. I don't know how many people, 1,000 people, but it was a big...
18,000?
18,000
Wow,
people. And when they came for the sound check, I mean, we did call and warn everybody, but it had sold out. You know, what are you going to do? They suggested putting parachutes to kind of hold the sound down. I'm like, when? You know, it's just 2:00 in the afternoon. When are we going to get these parachutes and put them down? So the sound check was a disaster. David was very worried. And I really wish I could say that it worked out, but it didn't. Sound came off, dropped into the audience. Everyone started screaming. They couldn't hear. They couldn't see. It was a tragic performance.
But the tour continues. You do over 50 dates in the UK.
Yeah, and it was great. It's a fabulous tour.
Yeah, and the final leg and the last gig, we said this podcast is essentially our pin is in the Hammersmith Odeon. So set the scene for us. David coming into the final Ziggy Stardust show at the Hammersmith Odeon.
And, you know, I would have thought he might have looked at me a little bit of a different way or said a little something. He was like stone. He really was like stone. The band was the same as everybody. Everyone was going to get some time off. Everybody's families was there. Is that, you know.
So there was no indication whatsoever.
You know, and neither did Mick. Didn't give any. Mick's always nervous anyway, so he was kind of shaking, but no indication at all. And I stood with him on the side and I thought, wow, I can't. And I'm ironing the costumes. Is this the last time I'm going to iron this costume? You know, I was worried. I was nervous.
So more worried rather than sense of relief. I mean, it's knackering, isn't it? I mean,
it's knackering. Oh, well, yeah. You're
mix of-
22.
I've forgotten what 22 was like.
Well,
so-
let me tell you, it was fabulous. I didn't want it to end. I mean, it was nice to have a few weeks off.
Yeah,
But once I was back, between tours,
Yeah.
I go back to
You thought you were
Beckenham.
going back to America.
Yes, I wanted to go back to America and do it all over again. Yes, why not?
Of course, Beverly Hills.
And I wanted to
Hotel.
go to Australia. I wanted it to go on and on, you know. I loved
Having
it.
a souffle every morning.
Yeah, well, I didn't do that, but Lee Black Childerson did that, naughty boy.
It's quite well documented that Woody and Trevor weren't told by
They weren't
David.
told. It was horrible. Weren't told. And that really made me cross. And I was, you know, it's hard to stay cross with David for long because if it wasn't for him, none of us would have been there. That's the number one. And after that, I went to the chateau. They were doing pin-ups. And he just looked as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. I think he'd been Ziggy for a long time, 24/7. I was young, you know. I don't know how much that must take out of you, but it must be an enormous amount. And I think he just wanted not to be Ziggy anymore. I think he wanted to try other things. I think he also thought if he continued being Ziggy, he might be Ziggy forever. You know, sometimes you get to that pinnacle and you are somebody forever, and then you can't ever get away from that moniker. I mean, as relieved as I think he was at the chateau, the Chateau d'Yverdon. When we got to Italy, he was very restless. I mean, sitting by the swimming pool was never David's thing, so he was very restless, and him and Angie left after a few days. I think he was suddenly thinking, what the hell have I done? You know, I've just given up one of the most successful things England's seen, and now what am I going to do? So I think he was probably a bit nervous about what was coming up for him. Well, Trevor did come to France.
Trevor
for
is on pin-ups.
But it was only because Jack Bruce couldn't do it. I'm not sure whether he knew that or not. But it's like, it wasn't like the management went away and gave him like £1,000 each or something.
Yeah.
They didn't get shit. They didn't get anything. They just had to go back to Hull and get on with it. So I think, and they must have felt such twits. I mean, how humiliating was that for them?
But obviously, Trevor goes on to be in Uriah Heep,
Yes.
Wishbone Ash, and Woody, I think.
No, he left because he got kicked out the same as Trevor. But the reason Tony said that was because Woody had been, or they said that there had been, they were getting fired because they'd been, you know, what's that word when they were not loyal? Had not been loyal. So I was thinking to myself, not been loyal. They were on 50 quid a week. Hell, I was on 20. I mean, it didn't seem fair to me, especially Mick. Come on, everything he did for bloody 50 quid a week, that's ridiculous. So I understood. And then Woody found out that Mike Garson, I think Mike Garson was making like 400 a week or something. He was making, or 200, even a lot more than Woody was.
Yeah.
And so with the horn players, I think they were MU, so they were getting decent wages. And he was furious. This is somewhere back in America. And he called on David and DeFries and said, want the same as them. I want at least the same as them. And we were in the middle of a tour. And he had him over a barrel. But DeFries stored that up. And that was, he said, well, you were disloyal to us. I'm firing you with disloyal to us. I said, what do you mean? We're the same as everybody else was getting. What was wrong with that? And I'm sorry, I think they treated them very badly. I did. I still do.
Pin-Up's Covers album is the final release featuring any of the Spiders before Ziggy has finally retired. And you were there when the amazing cover photo was taken. Did you help style that?
I did his hair. Yeah.
So this is in Paris.
In Paris with Twiggy. And I don't know how you pronounce her husband's or her manager's second name. Justin.
Villeneuve?
Villeneuve, do you know? You must know. You look the smart one.
I'm not sure.
No, well, anyway.
He's going to store that up forever.
No, but he just more technically, he's on his computer going, like, finding out whether we right
I'm going to say Villeneuve.
You're Mr. Penalty over there. So I think that he was there.
Justin de Villeneuve.
Is that how you say it? All right, then.
Well, I'm going on the basis
Yeah,
that the film director Villeneuve, who's just made Dune and Blade Runner, they pronounce it Villeneuve, and it's
Okay,
spelled
great.
the same.
Okay, so him,
We're going to go with Villeneuve.
they were actually doing a photograph. I think it was.
Bowie Villeneuve.
I think they were doing. What the cover wasn't meant to be the cover. The shoot was
It was for Vogue.
Supposed to be for Vogue.
Vogue.
Oh, yeah.
And then David saw those photographs and look how gorgeous they were. He said, I want that for the album cover. And they offered them. So I think Justin said, well, how many people are going to see that? David said, look at my figures. And he said, okay, we'll take that.
So, Suzi, would you claim that you were the first stylist in rock music?
I think I could lay claim to that, yeah.
I must admit, I can't. No one else comes to mind.
How many stylists do you think Harry Styles has?
Well, now, yeah.
No, but of the influence of this, though.
I think it was that haircut, you see, because even when I did it, I thought, he's going to have me around because you can't go into Nottingham and say, can you give me a touch-up and a trim, can you? It was, he had to have someone around that knew how to do that. So that was in the back of my mind.
How important was Mick Ronson to David Bowie and the Ziggy Stardust
Let
thing?
me count the ways. David, Moon Age Daydream was a country song before Mick got his hands on it. It was a country song. I heard it as a country song. That was sung softly on an acoustic guitar. Morrissey says Mick was a gas in Bowie's engine. Ken Scott said, did I mention that we could never, ever have done those albums without Mick Ronson? And I was witness to it myself. Mick did everything for David. He was his band leader, but it was the arrangements he wrote. And I often wonder about those songs. You get two people sitting in a room. Mick starts up a couple of chords. David writes a couple of lines. What's that? It's co-writing. And, that was never, ever acknowledged for Mick. And the only reason I say that is because years later, I met people like Oslek, Reeves Gabriel, that tell me that we know that Mick had a lot more to do with these songs than he was ever credited for. And then there was one song that he did on the Morrissey album, and I think it had something out of one of the songs that David did. Anyway, he said he was using a bit out of this song. And Morrissey said, you can't do that. That's from that song. Don't worry, I wrote it. So, but then he was dying at that point. So, I think it was time for him to say something, but Mick was never bitter. He was never a bitter man about these things. And Mick was only 46 when he died. And I think his time would have come round again. I think he would have worked with David again. I think he would have done a lot more stuff, and I think he would have made money. I mean, when David was, dishing out the 20 quid a week or whatever it was, the 50 quid a week, it wasn't him. That was the manager that was doing that. David didn't have any money either. It wasn't like David had fortunes of money and the band had nothing. David didn't have any money either. It was the manager that had the money.
Did you ever see David again?
No. I mean, I saw him, Black Tie, White Noise. I went to see him at a gig, but he had Corinne Schwab as his minder. And she never liked me from the get-go, I don't think, because I was on the road and she was in the office. So she don't look back. And she shoved me off with the fans. So I'm like, sorry, but come on.
So is that shoot for Pin-Ups the last time you saw him?
No, it's the Pin-Ups. We went on holiday in Italy. I was there then. Then we did the 1984 show in the Marquee. And I did that with them. And then that was pretty much it after that, yeah.
Right, Mark, true or not, did this happen or have I made it up? Mick Ronson played piano on Perfect Day.
I'm going to say no.
Suzi?
Of course he did. It's brilliant. It's one of the best it's a beautiful piano piece. And they've never changed that piano piece. Yeah. No matter how many times, no many different people have recorded it. Yeah. He did all the arrangements on that album too, mind you.
Yeah.
All the strings, all the arrangements on that are Mick's.
Wow. Ziggy Stardust was based on two of the following: the aforementioned Lou Reed, Pink Floyd founder Syd Barrett, or American rock and roller Vince Taylor.
I'm going to go for Vince.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to go for Lou.
You would be correct. Not Syd Barrett.
I may have read that before, but yeah. After making such a hash of the previous question, I wanted to get that one right.
A young Suzi Ronson saw the Beatles at which of the following venues? The Guildford Odeon, Croydon Fairfield Halls, or the Finsbury Park Rainbow? It was then the Astoria.
Well, I guess Croydon's closest to Beckenham,
It
probably.
is.
So I'm feeling that. But then Finsbury Park, they used to do their Christmas shows at Finsbury Park.
Along with David Bowie, who also did Christmas shows at the Rainbow.
You know what? I'm keen to say Croydon, but I'm going to swerve. I'm going to say Susie went up to Finsbury Park to the Rainbow for Christmas.
He's wrong.
Where
So
was it,
there's a
Susie?
wonderful passage in the book about going to Fairfield Halls to see the Beatles on a bus packed with kids.
And my mum was let me go. I can't believe she did, but there we go.
The ticket would be £9 in today's money, which I thought was extremely good value to see the biggest band of all time.
Yeah, but they weren't the biggest band at that point. I mean, they were pretty big, though.
Who was playing on that bill? Can you remember?
I think we're Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Is it Helen Shapiro?
No,
Or Roy
maybe.
Orbison?
I can't really remember who would cared. I just wanted to see the people.
It was funny. I looked the other day. I was delivering my Walthamstow music history tour the other day, and I was looking at the bottom of the poster at the Walthamstow Granada where the Beatles played, and it was when they were with Roy Orbison. The cheap seats were 5, 7, 7 and 6.
I think I
And the
paid
most-
6 and 6.
Yeah, and the most expensive ones were 10 shillings, I think. And I had a look, and I thought, how much is that in modern day money? And yeah, you're right, 9 quid, 10
It's
quid.
amazing, isn't it? What you have to pay to see somebody these days.
Exactly. The bill was the Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Big Three, Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas,
Billy J. Kramer, yeah.
special guest star John Layton, and the compere was Vic Sutcliffe.
Don't remember it. Let's remember the Beatles. And we were sat right behind Ringo.
Oh.
I could have touched him. He was that close.
Oh, right, wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
Right, at the end of each episode, we each recommend something. It can be something you've liked for a long time or something you've recently discovered. I'm going to go to Susie first. What would you like to recommend?
Well, one of my favourite books of all time is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amir Tolls. And Amir has a new book coming out, I think the same day mine comes out,
Wow.
April 4th. So I'm so excited to read his new book.
Mark?
I've also read that book. I was on holiday in Spain, and that was fabulous. But I've not read his others. But I will.
Rules of Civility. Oh, awesome. Fantastic. All of them are good.
Great
He's-
recommendation, Susie.
He's a great author.
I'm currently excited. I'm going to Rome in a week's time.
You're a
Right.
lucky bugger, aren't you?
I haven't been for 30 years,
It's
so
fabulous there. I lived in Rome for a year. It's gorgeous.
it's the first time my kids. I've got 2 girls, one 17, one 13. The 17-year-old hasn't legged it on her own to Italy or the US, but it's only a matter of time. But no, so we're going to do a day of history, a day of art, and we're staying just round the corner from the Pantheon in a really nice Airbnb. So I'm very excited about that.
That's very
Exciting.
exciting.
So I'm going to recommend, I thought for years, the first time I heard David Bowie, do you remember something called the Rock Circus? It was like a Madame Tussauds. It was based around music. It was at Piccadilly Circus. Does anyone remember this?
I don't know.
I don't remember that, no.
It was pretty bad. But when I was a kid, I went to see this and Space Oddity was playing and I was mesmerised by it and I stood and listened to it multiple times. But I've just remembered during this recording that actually my sister came home with a 7-inch single when I must have been about 4 or 5.
Oh, you're going to mention the dreaded 2 words.
Yes,
that
you
won't
are,
be mentioned
yeah.
in any Bowie podcast.
And she came home with this 7-inch single, put it on, and I can vividly remember the much maligned Dancing in the Street with Mick Jagger.
You didn't mention the
I thought he was going to mention the other one.
that we won't mention. It's like Macbeth.
So there we go.
You don't mention that.
I'm gonna recommend that.
Okay.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, all that remains is to just be overjoyed and thank Susie for spending a little
Very
time with
welcome.
us.
I've really
It's
had a good
brilliant.
time, actually. It's been fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Susie, the book is out. One of the few insider accounts that remain to be said.
I mean, it is different. It's a different way of telling a story. A lot of people have written about David, but no one's got the same kind of
and, I'm,
vibe with him as I did.
and I'm going straight from here to see if I can find some guard to deal with my dandruff. Angie Ronson, it's been a pleasure. Thank
you,
you very
Susie.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.